Okay, here's a stark reality video from a few years ago showing you the reality of civilization.
But one day the Aborigine descends from the inland mountains, and as he gets closer to the coast, he jumps hundreds of centuries in only a few days. Here at Port Moresby Airport, where his trip through time ends, and where he cannot find a reason for all that he has been taught and is seen so hurriedly, this...
Did they look like they had sunburnt and peeling on them a little bit there, or was that just real dry, ashy skin? Let's continue.
seed of the Cargto Cult, the cult of the cargo planes, is born in him.
Ooh, magic bird. This is much the way South Africa began not too much longer ago, but also the reality for the Nubians who were at the border of Egypt, not held back by a fence, but by warriors, not even allowed to come into Egypt by many decrees. Let's continue. Magic bird flies, and they want to covet. So what do? Just stay at a fence and whine until somebody gives them a plane, or how does this work? Well, let's see.
Along this great ocean route, 10 cargo planes connect Hong Kong with Australia. They land each day at Port Moresby, and the cargo cult has its temples almost everywhere nearby. This is one. Its altar is standing 9,000 feet above sea level. The dummy plane is at the edge of the landing strip. At the other end, the control tower. The natives of the Rozo and Mikeo tribes are waiting for some plane to land on their strip, attracted by the bamboo model. They believe that planes come from paradise. Their ancestors sent them. But the white man, a crafty pirate, manages to get his hands on them by attracting them into the big trap of Port Moresby.
So we can now maybe get a dim view of how these people view the world, where they now claim that airplanes were somehow a Negroid invention and it came from their gods and not the Caucasian god of the Bible, who doesn't mention them whatsoever. Let's continue. Looks like they waste a lot of time sitting around waiting for a Caucasian plane to land.
You build your plane too, says the cargo cult doctrine, and wait with faith. Sooner or later, your ancestors will discover the white man's trap and will guide the planes on your landing strip. Then you will be rich and happy.
So if the white man shows up, they'll eventually be rich and happy. That's what they just said. They wait for the white man, but when he shows up, they hate him and say that white man took their stuff. It's quite hilarious when you look at this and the reality of it all.
They wait, motionless, searching the sky. There is no other world beyond these mountains, so the large birds that roar up there above the clouds cannot but come from paradise. There are only their ancestors in paradise. Therefore, only their ancestors can have built the planes.
So you see the mentality here. These planes flying over above, they think their ancestors went to heaven, just like a lot of people do. And so these planes must have came from heaven. So they think they're space gods that came down. But in reality, it's Caucasian civilization that's so much more advanced than them, they can't understand it and relate it to spacemen, who then they attempt to relate to Negroids whenever they didn't see a single Negroid getting on and off that plane, nor the pilots that run it, but they don't understand the technology, and they covet.
Spirits of the deceased cannot know the white men. Therefore, all those wonderful things that the planes carry were meant for their descendants. They've left the mission. They've forgotten their prayers. And here they are, waiting faithfully at the doorway to the sky.
For the white man to come and help save them. Billions have been sent by whites trying to help these primitive people. But it seems like as soon as they get a few generations into it, they start claiming white civilizations again, just like they used to somehow claim the flying bird here and so on. Just like they used to probably Nubians claiming chariots and all these other things that had nothing to do with them whatsoever. Let's continue. Just take a look at a few of the comments down here. Might be a little revealing here for a lot of people. Should we tell them? Nah, let's film them. Wonder why they didn't key on all the cool equipment that the Caucasians had there to work with. Someone should tell them they have a plane blocking the runway. Yeah, and that runway is not real susceptible, although some of these bush planes can land in a short amount. There's this cool red one that they've come up with now that's got these huge tires on it and everything, so they can just land in the bush, run over mesquite trees, doesn't matter. And they can land that thing within 30 feet or something, come into the wind and then just prop it down. It's amazing. I forget what they call it. They got a name for it. Somebody will say it down in the comments and probably put a video to it, but it's quite interesting. So it's said here that this is sad and hilarious at the same time. White people must have deceived the gods and stole those Malaysian airplanes. It all makes sense now. The first minute is how I feel whenever I play Civilization and all other nations have better technology than me. This must be one of those games where you, video game where you start off Civilization or doing something. I haven't played it before. Dim whitey devils stole my ancestors' gods and shit. Somebody violated the Prime Directive. Yeah, we remember Star Trek, the Prime Directive is not to mess with a primitive people and screw it all up because it makes cargo cults. They even showed such, even with black people, in one of the new remakes of Star Trek where they come down to get a certain scroll that they were not supposed to have in the first place, and in doing so, somehow make them into a cargo cult. Am I the only one wondering why they filmed this and why people aren't equally as interested in the camera equipment? So this is how it feels to discover aliens from other planets. You'd think someone would try to explain it to them. Maybe they have. This is why we have the Prime Directive. Here's a black man. He says, when documentaries were actually amazing production value. It's kind of scary to think that they have been here for at least 70 years waiting for something that will never come, wasting their lives and building useless airfields. How long will they do that? And does anybody care? If I was a pilot, my goal would be to touch and go one day on one of these. LOL. That really says something about religion. If they thought planes are special, I wonder what they thought of those cameramen. Wow, these people are very racist, thinking that it's white men's fault for stealing planes. Yes, it is, whenever they try to covet and say, oh, the flying thing that white people are using was somehow theirs. But you can see it come out of these people, and then you can understand why African Americans maybe covet Egypt, the Bible, and all the things that they do, and the mentality of it. Watch the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy. It's an awesome movie based on a pilot that drops a Coke bottle out of a Cessna while flying over tribal lands. Of course, this is the Khoisan, and I did a recent video. And in fact, the major picture of the video looks like that guy from the movie. It's amazing, and you can still see how primitive they are. Now, of course, a lot of Africa is becoming unprimitive, and that's due to a lot of Caucasian intervention. But, oh, Cargto Cult again? Right. They think it was a present from the gods. It makes a whistle noise and can hold water or crack nuts. Then people fight over the bottle. It's a must see. It will open your eyes to the innocence of it all. Really? Is it very innocent whenever blacks try to claim civilizations that weren't theirs, hop up and down in clown suits, acting like perhaps it had something to do with them, and telling white people that they aren't part of the Bible, that it's all about Negroids? How pathetic. This is pretty much how religion is formed. So there must have been space gods come down and start off the Caucasian religion then. Now I know how aliens feel when they come to Earth and why they don't stay. Thanks, Vsauce. I was wondering about Kangs and shit. Imagine if someone would send a helicopter and splice to their runway. That would be their heaven. Think about that. The whole time they had engineered skills to put together an aerodynamically sound glider contraption. The next step is simply understanding that you can use it to slow vertical descent, yet superstitious trumps intellectual growth. Quite a prevalent theme in humanity. This goes to show that religion becomes more about the worshiper and less the mindset of whoever they're originally awed in order to start a religion. White men flew those planes in previous generations, and these people, knowing little about planes, came up with their own associations and idealizations about the event. They remembered it as their immortal ancestors giving them gifts. It shows how much a story passed word of mouth can change in less than 100 years' time. From this, it's easy to see how civilized humans would make a god whatever they wanted to be in their own minds, based off some recorded Sumerian tales of helpers from above. Then they demonize UFO alien encounters and don't realize that these were people that flawed the same helpers, and that they later turned into a single, all-powerful, direct, perfect deity in their own minds. Something actually happened that was emblazoned in human memory, but over time the interpretation of that event changed into something else. Again, probably relating to the Sumerians that started the Bible, which I've shown many videos that shows you that's exactly where it comes from, and then a melding of the group of people. Man, if you read down the comment section, it's like a broken record. If I had a tiny plane, I'd land it on their strip. It'd be funny if you sent a remote plane to land there. Someone talk to them, maybe? Wow, this is fascinating. It's like when you're playing Civ, so this must be that civilian thing game or what, a civilization game, and the enemy is way more advanced than you. Yes, they don't want to admit that they were the least advanced people on the planet, and so now they covet your history, telling you that was them, see? So don't think of me as being primitives, whereas whenever they try to covet like that, it shows you that they are about the mentality of these people in the video. All their old players have brought nothing compared to the white people's non-prayers. That does make sense right there. Well, one of them has that God out of the Bible, and the other one apparently doesn't have anything along that line. Dawkins talked about Cult of John Frum and Cargo cults and the God delusion, and that explains a little more about this. So sad. I wonder if the unbelievers in planes are believed to be immoral. I wonder if the unbelievers they talk about in the planes are believed to be immortal. I wonder if they think the believers in the planes think that they're going up to heaven and that somehow they think there are negroids there whenever it's white people going and coming. This video is in a Vsauce lean back. Nice. I'm sorry for these people. This one is quite depressing. The most important thing in the video? The fence. It's funny how extraterrestrials might be able to dupe humanity like this. Read the Allies of Humanity briefings. Indeed, this kind of thing that is happening, it's just from a greater scale than ever before in our world. I wonder what would happen if a plane needed to make an emergency landing or just happened to see the landing strip in the mountains. What would the Cargto Cult do to any white men on board? Assuming they survive, because I don't think that runway is near long enough. And it's not. Pink Floyd should make a song on this. Learning how to fly? I think they did, but I think that was actually about Caucasians and how Caucasians had learned how to fly. And I don't know if you know it or not, but I hear that there's spacemen now and lead science and all kinds of things that the people in the video couldn't understand. Although we could bring them up for a few generations, it seems like after a few generations they will start coveting and saying that they weren't those people and that somehow they invented everything and then you stole it from them. It's quite disgusting, and it's making up racism by their own jealousy and then acting upon it racistly. It's gotten past disgusting, but let's continue. This is either from Mondo Cane or Mondo Cane 2. I forget which one. You need to take everything in those movies with a handful of salt. Yes, salt, it's dependent for the body and stuff. Science shows you this, and of course that has a lot to do with Caucasians too, and just flavoring foods. But also salt can be used for many things like preserving foods, or a version of salt like natron, desiccating and dehydrating a body to the point that it becomes a mummy. And luckily the Egyptians did this, so when we look at them and they all have Caucasian hair and Caucasian DNA, that lie gets exposed. Of course, blacks just try to rant and hop up and down and say that it was them and it's all some big conspiracy. Like what they're trying to tout isn't some big conspiracy. Well, it's actually a sad conspiracy that's been debunked so much, and it just makes them look pathetic by their own hands. This is the same guy that narrated the Dark Crystal. Oh, I'm not sure. He does have that deep Steve Sable kind of, blustery day on Lambeau Field talk. So yeah, that some of these narrators and people like David Attenborough and things are really outstanding narrators and somebody worth listening to. I wish I had that eloquent of a voice or the dramatic pauses of Captain Kirk while I talk and stuff, but I don't do as much of that. Sometimes my older videos, I tried to act a little bit ooh about it, and now when I look back at it, I feel like I'm trying to tell fourth graders a ghost story. So it's kind of disgusting, and if you noticed, I've kind of quit doing that. I know where I'm sending my first Amazon drone shipment. I can understand them. I love planes. I saw one on top of that, it bearing amazing stuff. I would gladly wait all my life and do what I think is correct to see another one again. I was a kid who grew up in the Air Force world, and part of the time in Offutt Air Force Base, Strategic Air Command headquarters in Omaha, Nebraska. My father was there, and got to watch planes all day long, and quite often go and get onto planes and do things like that. Yeah, it was real neat and interesting in watching them fly. And still, whenever I got older, I would go out and park at the end of the runway at a place my father used to work at, making black project airplanes, and watch them tear off overhead, quite often with a few friends of ours, just marveling on the fact, especially whenever I knew one was going to take off tonight at about 10:30, we'd go out there and wait for it and just hang around. And the thing would take off directly right above you, and it would blow the car around. It was amazing. If they view old piston engine aircraft like a god, then I wonder how they'd view an A-10 Warthog on full strafing run. Burp, burp. There's probably some bush pilot that could land a Cub on that strip. And I talked about that one that could easily land there. A shrine created at the top of the mountain 9,000 feet above sea level because of a plane that dropped off some cool stuff and the natives considered it godlike, and it sounded like anything from mankind's past. Not that there isn't really a god, but you know that whole theory of ancient aliens. Reminds me of every religion out there. What if we give them toy drones? It's probably how most religions started. I would like to buy them a plane ticket, and he spells plane wrong. Christians, this is you, faithfully waiting for your Jeebus to come back out of the sky. Well, the Armageddon was actually in 73 AD, exactly whenever Jesus said so, 40 years, an exact generation, almost to the exact day that he said it would be on. And that revolution started from a Jewish revolt in 66 AD on the 6 months on the 6th day. And if those have wisdom, you can count that number. And it lasted 7 years, which put it exactly at 73 AD, where Armageddon happened. And then who rode in on their white horse? Because Jesus rode on a donkey, Mary rode on a donkey, Abraham rode on a donkey. By the way, that's supposed to all be the same magic donkey in the zodiac. But who rode in on a white horse? Well, that was Titus, and even has a Bible passages for him and so on. And this is all the Caucasian religion. But silly savages, why won't they believe in our sky wizard who impregnates virgins? Lucky for them, at least planes exist. Yeah, what would they be doing if they didn't know about planes? Would they come at the fence and see other people doing things and then say somehow everything they've got going over there was stolen from them somehow? That would be odd. They only had to wait 70 years. Christians are still waiting for almost 2,000 years. Yeah, everybody's waiting for this death cult situation that goes on where the world's supposed to come to an end and not eventually prosper. I think that might be part of the problem that we have in the world today, is that people are waiting for something that's not going to happen in the way that you did. If someone does come down, it's going to be an alien. And that's pretty much a fact. If some sky god comes down and, hey, I've torn it apart, but I will be the first person that if Jesus Christ shows up and we believe it to be him, which won't be just from being, words say go, but if it does show to be that, I will be one of the first people to turn around and go, man, I was wrong. Yeah, there's not a problem with that either. Anyhow, guys, that's about done it for this one here. Like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy. Peace.